All right. Let's do this again. Take two. If you guys have any comments or questions, drop it in. And by the way, I believe if you guys want to jump on here with me, I believe you can do that. If nothing else, just send me a note here in the message field, and I will. I believe I can invite you in, but hopefully there's a way that you guys can uh, do that as well. But just let me know if you want in. I'm happy to have somebody to chat with. All right, let's get to it. The news of the day: Stefon Diggs is going to be a commander. We have all talked about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, some for months really, some form of do the Commanders need to get another receiver? You go all the way back to free agency. They tried to get Alec Pierce. He had reasons to stay with the Colts, financial and personal. You had Romeo Dobbs. He decided to go to the team from the AFC that made the Super Bowl last year. Hard to hard to argue with that. So they go ahead and they add a couple other guys like a Van Jefferson, De'Ami Brown, bring back Traylon Burks, all that stuff. Okay, now get to the draft. Eric Leach, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for subscribing. Of course, thanks to everybody here for subscribing. Not doing all this without you guys' support. So tell your friends. All right, now so the draft, right? Okay, they don't go receiver in the first round. I don't think anybody's upset about Sonny Styles. Then you have um Antonio Williams in the third round. I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic there, but not an outside guy per se. Yeah, he can play outside, but he's built more like for like a slot. Okay. Well, let's see what happens in camp, right? Now we can move on for past OTAs and mini camp. But now here, this first week of camp, they've had six practices, uh, two with pads. And I would say that the receiver room, not counting Terry McLaurin, who's looked great, of course, that group has, I thought, had a pretty good camp so far. Depending on the day, Traylon Burks or Luke McCaffrey or Jalen Lane or Antonio Williams or Van Jefferson. If I'm forgetting somebody, it's by not intentional. I'm forgetting somebody. Um, um, all these guys have had good camps. Like I thought, to me, if you went through the first week of camp and they looked lousy, I think that it would be easy to say, "Hey, we gotta go out and get somebody." But if they look good, then what? In my opinion, they have looked pretty good. But none of them, it's like they have a guy, a number 1 guy in Terry McLaurin, and then a bunch of number 3 guys or 4 guys, okay? And obviously, that's not ideal. I do think that David Blau could have made, um could have made it work without bringing in Stefon Diggs, but he would have to know when he wants to use De'Ami Brown versus Luke McCaffrey versus Traylon Burks relative to the play call, to the situation. Is that too much? I mean, I don't know if it's too much, but it's not as simple as, "Hey, Diggs, you go out there and you go do the stuff with Terry McLaurin." So they decided, "Hey, let's go get another piece here." By the way, I need to workshop this in my own brain, but part of me is wondering, uh, the Terry McLaurin holdout was last year. This year they had a Laramie Tunsil situation, and that got done in 10 seconds. Now, I think it was a little bit different for a variety of reasons, including the fact that Adam Peters traded for Tunsil. That was had to be part of the plan they were gonna make this deal. But my point is, valuable lesson learned during the Terry McLaurin negotiation. I think he, um, I think, um sorry, if you think their room was a C with Terry, I just feel like this is an insurance policy. Yeah, I agree with that. I've talked before about how people have been asking for weeks, why not just bring back Debo Samuel? And like Debo did some good things last year. I'm sure he'll be fine with the 49ers now that he's back. But he's just not a classic receiver here. When Terry was out, you couldn't just sort of plug and play him in and say, "Hey, let's just keep running the offense the way we've been doing it." At least with Diggs, who we'll get to some potential downside here, but Diggs has obviously been a number one guy. Maybe he's more of a slot than he is an outside threat at this stage of his career, as some people around the league said to me. But he gives you more of that traditional look if you want, and I think all the other guys, the other guys also I think give you more of a traditional look for the most part, and I think that makes a lot of sense, especially in the worst case scenario that Terry McLaurin does miss any time. So there's that. Now, what about Stefon Diggs? What is Washington actually getting here? So here's a guy. He's a four-time Pro Bowler. He's gotten over 1,000 yards. I want to say basically he's gone over 1,000 yards every year since 2018, except for the in 2024 with Houston when he suffered an ACL injury. He went over 1,000 yards again last year with New England, coming off of the ACL. So you would like to think a year removed he could be better even, but okay. Good year with the Patriots. Ultimately, like I said, New England decided they wanted to go for AJ Brown. They got him. They wanted to go for Dobbs. They got him. And Stephon Diggs was going to make like 22 million, or his cap hit was going to be like 20 million. I think that was being viewed as too much. So that's why they moved on from him. And the fact that he was had some legal issues, which have now I think largely been resolved. I can't keep track of it all, but I think largely been resolved. That means that until that got done, the teams were like, we're interested, but you call us when you're all said and done. Now he is by and large there. Washington decided, all right, let's go ahead and and make this move. By the way, I started this analogy and then I stopped. I'm all over the place. I just talk. I had a really good session before when I was talking to you guys. You couldn't hear me. Damn it. Um, but I was making the point before about that after the Terry McLaurin holdout that Adam Peters got Laramie Tunsil done quick. Well, what else happened last year? I was harping on this for weeks that the receiver room needed big time help. Uh, I was saying that a healthy, even with Terry McLaurin around or a healthy Noah Brown, but when Terry McLaurin's holding out and Noah Brown's already hurt by minicamp, and then you look at the rest of the room and you're just like, dude, there's a lot of unproven guys and a lot of guys who I just don't think should be on an NFL roster. And again, Debo is not a classic receiver. I wonder if Adam Peters looks at this and says, okay, we have a good room, probably at least comparable, if not maybe a little bit better than the 2024 room that proved to be incredibly effective with Jaden Daniels having one of the best um, rookie QB seasons ever. But last year, they didn't do anything. I to this day am baffled that they brought in, like, Michael Gallup and, um, it just none of that made any sense. The room this year makes a lot more sense, but I wonder if he was hesitant last year to go make another trade, right? Because, um, already made the Lattimore trade and the Tunsil trade, didn't want to necessarily give up more picks, that he decided this time, "There's an opportunity here. I'm not going to be scared about it." In fact, if you look at one of the quotes that Adam Peters, when we spoke with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn at their pre-camp press conference, and I put this in the story I have up on the site about Diggs. Let me find this quote here really quick. Okay, so Adam Peters says, "quote Just like any other room, if we have ways to get better, we're always going to look into that and really assess the decision, if it's the right move for our team or not. And if we do think it is, then we're not afraid to do that." And part of me wonders, this is maybe I'm projecting, but part of me wonders is that the "we're not afraid" part is that last year maybe they had an opportunity to help that room and didn't. Anyway, they've done that now, and Stefon Diggs is going to come in. If I've already, did I already mention what some people around the league told me? Don't know if I did that in this session or not, but I will do that right here unless you guys tell me quickly that I'm repeating myself. But anyway, after the news came out, I hit up a few people around the league, some high-ranking front office people, including one whose team played against Diggs last year. And the response I got back was, "Hey, he's still highly competitive, very smart, can still be a force out there, but realistically, he's probably best off in the slot. He doesn't have the speed as much anymore to have that great success on the outside. And he's not going to be a huge yak guy." Um, a couple other people made similar point. So I wouldn't expect Stefon Diggs, the guy you saw, make great plays with the Vikings and the Bills. I'm not saying I wouldn't expect that guy to be here. Father time, maybe some battles get delayed, but he eventually wins them all. And Stefon Diggs is already starting to have a bit of an athletic decline. Again, he's still very productive, but he's not like a true number one anymore. And if you're going to have him in the slot more, if Washington sees that the same way, again, that's generally a sign of saying, hey, um, maybe this is not, um, maybe this is not the way to go right now. So, in any event, um, Stephon Diggs is also 32. He turns 33 in November. Like I said, that's not ideal. Terry McLaurin's also over 30. I recall last year, a lot of the debate was, well, you don't want to pay a receiver when they're over 30. By the way, Diggs, the deal here, 1 year up to 12 million, I was told from someone close to the situation, as they say. So no issues there. As long as it was 1 year, it was going to be fine. They have plenty of cap space. They had the third most cap space going into the day, over 40 million. So they're fine on that front, regardless of what the Diggs deal looks like. I'm just curious in terms of the money, how much lower than 12 is it? Is it 8 million? Is it 6 million? Like, I don't know how much incentives there are. We'll find out sooner than later. Uh, But but there you go on that. But let's see, Eric, big year for the development of Luke and seeing if his draft stock was worth it. Also seeing if Burks can thrive with JD5. How does this impact that? Fan of the sighting, but curious. Yeah, I mean, I was fine if they wanted to do digs, but one of my concerns was, okay, well, if you're going to be a lot of 12 personnel, meaning two tight ends, you're only going to have two receivers on the field, and now presumably that's going to be McLaurin and Diggs a lot. Well, what about Antonio Williams? What about Luke McCaffrey or Jalen Lane, let alone De'Ami Brown or Traylon Burks? I do think that you're taking a little bit of a hit, possibly, maybe not a big deal, but maybe a little bit of hit in terms of just having the younger guys develop. They'll still have a ton of opportunities to play. I'm sure we also don't know, again, knock on wood, or I'm gonna knock on this can here. By the way, if I didn't say, I don't know. Again, maybe I said this earlier. I just got off the radio. This is the radio mic. I'm at the night Team 980 studios. That's the lovely background behind me, etc. So that's just letting you know where I'm at in case you were um, wondering. Um, Man, I cannot keep any thought in my brain here. um, Yeah, Ben T notes this is the season after his return from ACL, so in theory he should be healthier, and we likely only need 80% of what he gave the Pats last year. Yeah, I do think the ACL point is a good one, similar to how we've talked about with Sam Cosmi. But yeah, Sam Cosmi came back last year after his ACL and he played, but he even said as much like, yeah, I didn't really feel all the way back. I think now he does. Um, Cosme and Laramie Tunsil were back at practice today, by the way, after sitting out the day before on a rest day. Cosme, it looked like he got a little banged up, but I guess he was okay. He was back out there today. Didn't seem any worse for wear. But yeah, Diggs in theory should be a little bit further along from a physical standpoint. But also at the same time, he turns 33 in November. Hopefully, for Washington's sake, he's got at least one more year in him of being a highly productive receiver. Um, what I think is really, really fascinating, and you guys know I love doing a 53 player projection, is what now happens to this room. I was already struggling because you have seven veterans for, I would guess, six spots. That's both the number of spots I typically would put for a receiver room, but also there's not much wiggle room here to play with. I usually, when I do these things, we all at the end of when they do the final cuts, like, oh, I can't believe they cut that guy. He's gonna get picked up, and then it never happens, right? We always overvalue some of the names at the end of the roster because this is the team we're paying attention to. If we were paying attention to the Browns or the Cardinals, or I didn't mean to name two crappy teams, the Seahawks, and whatever team it was, we would be overvaluing those guys too. It's just except that this year, as I'm looking at it, like this is not official, so don't quote me on anything. But, like, I'm looking at, like, I don't know that they can keep 3 quarterbacks, even though they drafted, uh, Ethan Kaliakmanis in the 7th round. Uh, I Javonte Jean-Baptiste, a guy who unfortunately got hurt last year, kind of wrecked his season, but at the same point, a guy that this organization drafted in 2024. He's had some good nice pop moments here in camp. Um, Jerome Ford is Jaden Bradley, one of the interesting young UDFAs. Can he sneak on somehow? Can you keep 6 safeties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I can't figure out where I would cut somebody to get 7 players at receiver on this roster, which means that if you say McLaurin and Diggs are locks, we'll say Diggs is a lock until he proves otherwise. Uh, Antonio Williams is a lock. I feel pretty comfortable to say Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey will be on this team. Not only are they, potentially intriguing at receiver, but both of them contribute on special teams. Jalen Lane took back 2 punts last year for touchdowns, and Luke McCaffrey had one of the higher yards per kick return average in the league. So if that's the case, that's 5 guys already. And if, like I said, if you're only keeping 6, you still have De'Ami Brown, Traylon Burks, Van Jefferson, not to mention the Jacoby Joneses and the uh, Jaden Bradleys and all those guys. I don't know. I kind of would lean towards De'Ami Brown, but I mean, am I really saying that Traylon Burks isn't going to make this team? I talked about this before or back in minicamp that I wonder if Traylon Burks did ultimately become the odd man out just because of the injury history and the inconsistency at times. But he's had some good moments in practice, and he has been out there largely. If there's been one person out there with Terry the most, I would probably say it was Burks. He's been out there pretty consistently in 11s with McLaurin and McCaffrey, but you keeping him? And then Van Jefferson, I had Santana Moss on the radio earlier. I've been a bit of a Van Jefferson stan here so far. I've always kind of liked him, and then so far in camp, I've liked what I've seen. And Santana Moss might be even a bigger fan than I am. He was really praising Van Jefferson, but you're gonna have to tell me how you get 7 receivers on this roster. Are you keeping 4 running backs? I mean, at the moment, I say yes because I just don't see them cutting Jeremy McNichols. He's just part of their deal, and then you've got, Bill, Rashad White, and Katron Allen. 4 tight ends. I mean, I think that's when you're playing 12 and 13 personnel, that you gotta have depth, and they've kept 4 most years anyway. The offensive line, we could quibble about who's there, but it's basically 9 guys. Again, this is just for the 53. This is not the active game day roster, but, defensively, between the true defensive linemen and the edge guys, I basically have 10, and again, this does not even include, just, Drake Jackson, Dietrich Wise, Shy Tuttle, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, TJ Magnorianga. So apologies for butchering that name, but I wrote about him a few weeks ago. Like, all these guys are like, in another year, like, even maybe last year, all these guys I might have said, "Hey, they can be on this team." I don't see that how that's happening. At linebacker, I think one guy, if they keep 5, I have Kane Medrano as the 5th. I like Kane Medrano. He's now back at practice, can help on special teams. So that's maybe a guy you could move on. In the secondary, I've got 4 corners and 6 safeties. Again, I think that Quan Martin is somebody that we'll keep an eye on in terms of his role, but and what it means for his roster status. But again, at the moment, at least that would be the case. That gets you to 50, and then of course you have kicker, punter, and long snapper. I mean, again, I'm already down to only 4 corners, only 2 quarterbacks. Um, when in doubt, I always say tie goes to, like, the defensive lineman or a pass rusher, which would think to bode well for Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who's had some good moments, I think, in camp. So it's a really fascinating situation to see. Is there a world where they can keep 7 receivers, or what do they do here? Uh, that is going to be really fascinating to see. So Stefon Diggs is a commander, or it's not official yet, but it's happening. I don't know that the John Hancock has been put on, uh, for sure. By the way, uh, I I uh, met a family out there today. They called me over. They were very nice. Said they're subscribers and they're fans and all that. And the dad, his daughter, she was like a teenager, I guess, asked me to autograph. She had this like Commanders football. It's like sort of like a Nerf kind of something. I was like, you got to be kidding me! You don't want my autograph? She's like, no, no, we listen to you all the time. I'm like, all right. And she gave me this pen she had, and I completely the pen didn't like quite it's not the same material as, like, writing on paper or something, and I don't even know what I don't know if I ever had an actual signature. I don't even know if I got a B out of it. It was terrible. I felt bad. If you're listening, I apologize. I'll do better next time. Um, anyway, so, let me go through a couple of things. Well, by the way, I talked to Logan Paulson today. We were speaking as the news came down about Diggs. The podcast is up at Last Man Standing or wherever you do your podcasting. So, for an in-depth look at that with insight from Logan Paulson, we got into that. We also got into um, what happened today in practice. I mentioned some of the chippiness, the better day for the offense, I would say, by and large. We also got into the defense. We talked about the fact that Frankie Louvu at the moment is maybe the front runner to be the green dot guy. Is that surprising? I also asked Logan about now that he's watched David Blau and Durante Jones's defense for a bit, what's like something that we all should know, some term, some play, some formation that he thinks is going to be key and something we should keep in mind. So I would say go check out that podcast. We did talk, of course, about Diggs a bunch towards like the last, I don't know, 15 minutes or so as when that news came out. So you can go check that out. All right, Matt W. Do you foresee us trading any of these depth pieces as injuries happen around the league? Well, I think that is gonna be the key, of course, is what happens else around the league. Now, last year, they traded Brian Robinson for a six-round pick, so I don't know that, like, any of these guys are gonna be so interesting to another team that they're like, "Oh, we gotta go out and get" trade for anything to get so and so. Maybe Traylon Burks if that would be the case since he has the pedigree of a former number 1 receiver, but and even some of the other positions I just don't see it. If somehow Quan Martin got on the wrong side of the bubble, maybe there as a somewhat recent second round pick. But I'd be surprised if like there's no Jahan Dotson, there's no Robinson. I don't know that you're getting anything out of any of these guys. But that's okay. I mean, obviously it'd be great, but it's good to have this situation where you have more guys that you need than the opposite, which has been so often the case around these parts over the last decade plus. It feels like the battle right now is Diami versus Burks. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if the three guys that Peters has drafted all make the team with McLaurin and Diggs, and you keep six, Diami, Burks, and Van Jefferson are fighting for one spot, and that is a crazy fight. It's going to really ratchet up. I already watch receivers a lot because one, they typically are warming up right in front of where we are, and then two, it's fun to watch them. They're catching the ball. The guys on the defense are, there's no, they're just moving around. There's no ball involved for here. Um, so there's that. By the way, just to go back to what happened today, for the first time in camp, we had one-on-one receivers and corners. That was very interesting. Terry McLaurin, unsurprisingly, had some impressive plays. Mikey Sanders still was on the wrong end of at least one of them, and Mikey got picked. I got picked on. It's a really tough spot for a defensive back to be. You have no help. You know, uh, there's not much you can do. So, but anyway, I think Terry looked good there. I think Luke McCaffrey looked good there. Colson Yankoff, I know we're talking uh, tight end. Colson Yankoff had one of the catches of camp so far. It was a one-on-one. No, sorry, it was in 11s. Uh, it wasn't Jaden throwing the ball, and the ball came out. He was kind of running down the field and down the left side, and then was going to kind of cut back out towards the sideline, and the ball was just not an accurate pass, it was kinda high, and he went up and basically one-handed it while falling down and made the catch. He's made a lot of catches in camp. I think he's been really impressive. Again, like, I think they keep 4 tight ends, but I don't know how it's gonna play out. Lawrence Cager's had some good moments as well. I don't think they're keeping 5 tight ends, but, yeah, so those are a couple guys that I thought stood out in the, receiver game. So that was just generally fun to watch. They also had one-on-ones, offensive line, defensive line, but also some of the like running backs got involved, like Bill to work on their pass protection. I think Bill's made some good strides in that regard from what I've seen, but also as a receiver, they've constantly been getting him the ball in space, or at least trying to. And when you don't have a plethora of playmakers, you got to find ways to get the ones you do have the ball. He's one of them. Uh, so that is what is happening. Again, apologies. I don't think I said this in this version, but Jaden Daniels has gotten better and better over the last few practices. I thought the first two were a little bit rougher, kind of inaccurate. They were also mainly red zone. Now, like today, the ball was out further down the field, gives him more room to operate. Looks like he's been in more control over the new Blau system. He's been accurate. He's been assertive. I think it's trending upwards again. I'm like, not that I was worrying about it going down. I'm just saying, you know, you gotta still do it, and he's been doing it. I think more and more here of late. All right. Since I screwed the pooch earlier, now I've been going here for a bit longer than I was thinking in terms of just regular real world time. So I'm going to bolt here in a minute. But if anybody else has any other thoughts, again, Stefon Diggs is a relative no brainer for what this team needs and what's left out in the market and what he provides. Hopefully, Father Time stays away. Hopefully, Father Time is not worrying about Stefon Diggs, and he's got more time to continue to be a highly productive receiver in this league. At a minimum, boy, I mean, this group did not have a lot of explosive plays last year, and now you're looking at Jaden Daniels. You got Bill Krosky Merritt, I think, is the best bet for big plays out of the backfield. You've got Terry McLaurin, you've got Stefon Diggs, you've got Chig Okonkwo. That's a lot deeper at playmaker. Forget specific positions than it was a year ago, and maybe even 2 years ago. I do wonder, again, it's the red zone without Zach Ertz, who's gonna be the guy that Jaden goes to? I haven't seen that person so far in camp, but maybe that is, in fact, Stefon Diggs. He's only 6 foot tall. He's not like some hulking target, but he has a good feel for routes. He's aggressive there. He's not just gonna be sort of a slight receiver who gets bumped around. He's gonna go for it. And I already thought that Terry McLaurin could be that guy as well, but now Diggs, and they're basically like the same size. I think Diggs could maybe get in that space, but we'll see when he's out there. I don't know. We're back at practice. If he is out there, maybe we talk to him, but even still, I don't know what that's going to mean in terms of when he plays. Next week, you got the joint practice, so maybe that's a way to aim, or a situation to aim for. But he's got about a month or so till a little over a month till he gets to face the Eagles in week 1. I presume he'll be good to go by then, and we'll have a better feel at that point as to what the hell this receiver room and this overall roster looks like. All right. I'm gonna call it there. Thank you guys for your patience. I really appreciate it. Next time we do this, if you can't hear me, it's not just you. It's definitely me. A lot of user error. Maybe I'm gonna give myself an excuse for not being here. For being here, not at home. Quickly, side, does the soft tissue thing that John Bates has concern you with him missing all this work? Not the missing the work part. I mean, sure, it's a new system and all that, but he was here for OTAs and minicamp. He's still in team meetings. He's just not on the field. And John Bates, I think of the tight ends, his role is the simplest to figure out. He's going to be the blocker. I think he'll be more of a receiving threat this year than he wasn't, but then he was under Kingsbury. But yeah, I think John Bates will be fine. Again, it's just a matter of when is he able to come back. Today, no, sorry, tomorrow. Dan Quinn told us earlier in the week that that'll be a big day for the Trey Amos, Tress Way evaluations. So maybe on Friday we'll get a feel for if those guys are back anytime soon. I've seen both of them were out at practice. Tress Way sporting a really killer mustache right now. So we will see what those guys are up to when the next time we get a chance to talk to Dan Quinn about these things. All right. Thank you for your patience again. Thanks for doing this. And most of all, thank you for subscribing to Last Man Standing. It means a lot. And, we're over a year now. I encourage you, for me, for society, tell your friends, hey, this guy is covering the Commanders like no other. He's also now into the Wizards. By the way, if you'd missed it, if you're into the Wizards, I wrote a story the other day, like sort of 4 questions about the Wizards right now, including Anthony Davis is his extension, his massive extension is he's eligible for that starting tomorrow. I don't think he's getting it, but is he gonna get some extension at some point? You can go check out my story there about all of that. All right. You guys rule. Many thanks. I'm going to go home. Things to do at the house tomorrow, and then Friday back out in Ashburn. You guys rock. Talk soon. See ya.